You're listening to Boomers Today with your host, Frank Sampson.
Well, welcome to Boomers Today. I'm your host, Frank Sampson. And of course, each week we bring you important, useful information on issues facing baby boomers, their parents, and other loved ones. And I just can't thank everybody enough for all their support, sharing our podcasts or a particular podcast with family and friends. And I know you're doing that because our listeners are growing every single day. And so we kind of grow organically, and we really appreciate that. And I think you're doing it because we have such great guests and great information. And I'm not going to, disappoint you today. We have with us Linda Barrett, has a long-term commitment to the field of aging. She is an honors graduate of Miami University, where she earned a Master of Gerontological Studies degree. Linda has held many diverse positions in management, public relations, and training. And after a 33-year career with the Social Security Administration, she taught gerontology courses at Miami University for 10 years. And in 2019, Linda founded DiverseAGE, LLC, whose mission is to shed light on workplace communication, cultural diversity, and navigating issues of aging. So Linda, thank you so much for joining us on Boomers Today. I really appreciate it.
Well, thank you for the invitation. I'm happy to be here and share information that hopefully will be interesting, useful to your listeners.
I have no doubt. Just doing a little, our discussion, a little bit of research on you and your company. I know you're going to be bringing a wealth of information today. And I'd like to start out just asking you, it's a term that's used, not necessarily everybody's familiar with it. I know you refer to it on your website, and we've talked about it offline, but it's generational diversity. So maybe you could tell us generally what that means.
Sure. Generational diversity is the concept of having a wide range of generations in the workplace. We're kind of unique now in that people are living longer. People are also wanting to work longer. And so for the first time in history, we have 5 generations in the workplace. So diversity among generations and aging.
Got it. So there's a number of different generations. Maybe you could go through them because I'm confused sometimes, and I know that maybe you could discuss them, and I know that we'll talk a little bit, and you could certainly give your thoughts that all these generations amazingly are working side by side
right.
At work today. So maybe give us an overview of that.
Sure. Well, the oldest generation is what's called the traditionalist. Some people refer to them as the silent generation, but that's people that are 77 plus, born in 25 through 42. I know people aren't going to remember all these statistics, but basically the oldest, the traditionalists, then followed by we, the baby boomers. And that this year, baby boomers are born between, you can remember it easily, it's between people born between 46 and 64. So you just reverse the numbers.
That's always good to know.
So this year, the oldest baby boomers are turning 76, and the youngest baby boomers are turning 58. So you can see that even within that, perhaps there's diversity within each of these, if you will, labels of generations. Because maybe 58-year-olds don't think the same as 76-year-olds. So there's diversity within the generations. The next after us are Generation X, and that's people that this year are between 42 and 57. And then the millennials, age 26 through 41, followed by Gen Z. That's currently our 25s and down to age 9. So 9 to 25. Some people are calling them the Zoomers. You got the boomers and the Zoomers. Some people are calling them the centennials instead of the millennials. So there's different names for that. And then 8-year-old and under, that right now the label there is kind of the alpha generation.
Gotcha. All right. So tell us some of the maybe good things or challenges in these generations kind of working side by side in the workplace.
Yeah, we could talk a long time about that.
Yeah, that's a question that we could do the whole podcast on, huh?
Exactly. I will say first that, some of the challenges could be, there's a terminology called chronocentrism. And so we think that, each generation thinks that they have the best of certain things, whether it's fashion or my music is the best or my approach is the best. And a lot of that's based on, the culture, the historic period in which we were born. And so that culture clash, if you will, age clash, just our approach to our belief systems, our values are formed between about age 8 and up through the late teens. And so whatever the values and things in society that are ingrained in you, our values and our beliefs, those drive our behavior. And so, from that perspective, if you have culture clash, that's going to lead to communication conflict. It's going to perhaps lower job satisfaction. It could even impact your ability to attract or retain employees. Research shows that if people don't see themselves, perhaps age-wise represented in a company, that maybe they don't want to be part of that company, or if they're already there and they're experiencing these clashes and these value conflicts, maybe they don't want to stay. And of course, we know that's very expensive for companies to train someone and hire someone and then leave 6 months or 12 months later, and you have to start a reinvestment process or finding someone new. So that's kind of some of the challenging parts. The advantages, to diversity or to age generational diversity are many. And companies have reverse mentoring programs, meaning it's not just the older employee that's passing on the heart of the company to, that they're the supreme expert, but you also have reverse mentoring where younger ages are working to impart information to people that maybe don't have the same skill set as them. So, depending on what workplace you're in, it could increase your sales, it could increase your job satisfaction, it would improve communication. So, that's some information that might be helpful for people to know.
So interesting you said that the younger generation many times are educating the older generation at the workplace, or how's that working? How's that working versus somebody saying I'm just talking somebody that's in their boomer years thinking, who's this person think they are? I've been around, I know this, I've done this. They have no clue. I mean, does it work okay, you think?
Yeah, and I think that we need to question our own, I'm speaking our generically, but the stereotypes or prejudice or concepts that perhaps one generation thinks, well, these millennials or these Gen Z, they're on their smartphone, they're doing Snapchat, they're looking at TikTok. And then, of course, they could say about the baby boomers, that we're workaholics and that we're old, more autocratic, or we feel like they have to pay their dues when what they're wanting is recognition. They're wanting to have input. They're wanting to have merit to their ideas. And so don't label technology as being something negative. We also don't want to stereotype that boomers, for example, don't know about technology because they're using, tablets and smartphones and Zoom and technology as well. So I think these labels or these stereotypes are harmful, for someone of an older generation to think that there are not still things that, I was all the time, for example, in the classroom at Miami University where I taught. I was constantly learning from the younger generation. And that's part of what I loved about it, just this interaction, that not feeling like, and so they knew that was genuine and they knew that I respected them. And so I had an open mind about all the things that they could teach me.
Interesting. Yeah. So I'd like to ask you about what has been termed the Great Resignation. Okay. And is that real? And if it is it happening, and what effect is it having? And because I know, at least I've read, you know better than I on this, but that the kind of that boomer generation intends to work longer. They're not necessarily going to be retiring right at 65, maybe like previous generations did.
Right.
So how is that affecting this whole Great Resignation? What are your thoughts there?
Well, I think in studying aging demographics, certainly if we look at different age groups and what we think would be a traditional retirement age, for example, a decade ago, at the Social Security Administration, in putting perspective to aging demographics in a workplace, you always have planning and future planning. And so, for example, at the time, it was known that 50% or more of management nationwide was reaching retirement age. So, we have to think forward about the workplace. And, I've heard the Great Resignation talked about during COVID too, not just about older generations.
Right.
And so these terminologies, which borderline in the gerontological world, have been, something that are kind of negative as far as silver tsunami. It's like this giant wave's going to hit you and kill things. And so this concept of, there's some truth to that as far as demographics. Of course, if you have 10,000 boomers turning age 65 every day, there are going to be people, quote unquote, stepping aside and retiring. At the same time, another perspective of that is now with 2008 Great Recession. I'm not sure what was so great about it, but right. It was a financial impact negatively, toward particularly the older generation that had investments and had other type of things that, of course, that's come back up, home values. So the Great Recession. Then you have the impact of COVID. You also have some people that just, they enjoy their work. I just read a statistic that a 250,000 people age 85 plus are still in the workplace and don't plan to retire. And so some people have worked very hard over their careers to reach a certain position, and they enjoy what they're doing and don't plan to step aside. So, I think there's some truth on either side of that.
Great. Well, this is great stuff, and we're going to take a real quick break just to recognize our sponsor. I promise it will be quick, and then we come back.
Sure.
Certainly want to give our listeners information about you and how they could reach you. And we're going to talk about some other subject matters as well, including ageism. which I want to talk to you about. Okay.
Sounds good.
Great. So, do you know anybody who may be concerned about an older driver? Well, Senior Care Authority's Beyond Driving with Dignity program is a facilitated self-assessment program for older drivers. This program has been designed to serve as a vital tool to facilitate older drivers and their families as they make appropriate decisions regarding the future of one's safe driving career. If the individual is a safe driver, an advisor will provide him or her with strategies on how to remain a safe driver as they progress through the aging process. If driving retirement is the appropriate decision, then the individual and their family are offered possible alternatives, resources, and a specific plan to ensure a smooth and successful transition from the driver's seat to the passenger seat. To learn more, you could go to www.beyonddrivingwithdignity.com or call 877-907-8841 to connect with a Senior Care Authority advisor in your area. We're back with Linda Barrett, who is the founder of DiverseAGE. And so Linda, just to kind of continue, we'll continue on our, on our discussion, but maybe I just want to give you the opportunity to share with everybody just, how they could reach you, and go ahead and feel free to share website and any other information you would like.
Well, I appreciate that. DiverseAGE is kind of a combination of, you mentioned the mission earlier, shedding light on cultural diversity, workplace communication, navigating issues of aging. So there's kind of a three-pronged availability to do diversity training, and that's primarily with organizations for staff to understand more about the pieces of the puzzle, which I'd love to talk about. In these pieces of the puzzle, once you understand what diversity is, I give talking and thinking tools that will help people work through or avoid conflict by employing some of these tools, and also navigating issues of aging. I appreciate what Senior Care does, and on a small, more localized way, I help families and organizations work through navigating issues of aging. A lot of people don't know about where to turn. They don't know about area agencies on aging or council on aging or different programs that are out there for them to tap into. So it's interesting that I've done cultural diversity training in high schools, and I've also done navigating issues of aging. One of the places was up at Ohio State, one of their medical centers. So a lot of people, again, as you know, just don't know how to tap into that. So if listeners go to my website, which is www.DiverseAGE.com, they can take a look at the tabs across the top with my background, with the various services that I offer. And then there's a place on there for contact, and those messages go to DiverseAGE@gmail.com, and I would read them and respond from there. So I'd love to interact or partner with anyone that might be interested.
Great, good, great information. So I want to talk about a subject matter that, is disturbing, and maybe you could shed some light on it, generally speaking, and or maybe in the workplace, and that's ageism. Okay,
Right.
ageism. Maybe you could. I don't have to explain. I'll let you explain really what that is. Maybe some people never
Sure.
are familiar with the term, and just how we could. I know we're not going to get rid of it, but what suggestions do you have in educating people more so it's not so prevalent? Because it is prevalent today.
It absolutely is. In fact, just yesterday I read a statistic, and when I say statistic, as an educator myself, I'm talking about research-based statistics. So it was that 80% of people 50 and over in the workplace say that they have experienced ageism. That really takes you aback, because 80%, of course, is a very large number. The majority of people experience ageism. Ageism is basically, there's several isms in our society. We have racism, sexism, classism based on socioeconomic status, ableism based on whether someone has physical abilities or abilities based on having disabilities. So what we say in gerontology is largely that ageism is the last acceptable ism. What I mean by that is, we stereotype people based on being, simply because of their age, we stereotype and or discriminate against them. Discrimination is actually a treatment that would come out of a belief or a prejudice, and it drives your behavior. So, they're not hired, they're not promoted, they're not given training opportunities because they're only going to work 2 more years. So ageism, interestingly, it can come in different forms. Society at large, it can be internalized ageism, meaning I start viewing myself as I don't have anything to contribute, or I start making jokes that are ageist jokes because it'll make me feel better if I, laugh about it. And so this rejection, or this selfless aging society, anti-aging society, and then you have benevolent ageism. Benevolent is someone might unintentionally think, oh, I need to help this person. I always challenge people, ask them, could I help you with this? Because maybe they don't want help. So benevolent is kind of a compassionate stereotype, if you will, based on age. And I'd like to also make a point that this can go either way, because it could also be that we stereotype people based on their age, based on them being young. And I actually experienced that. In fact, I was talking to a young lady that she's a sophomore in high school, and she worked at a local supermarket. And I said, well, I actually experienced something there where the baby boomer 2 cashiers were talking to one another. And they were saying negative things about the Gen Z, younger, teenage, early 20 employees. And of course, I was taken aback by that and had to bite my tongue and not get in a confrontation with the cashiers. But when I left, I said to the young man that was bagging my groceries, I want to thank you for your hard work. And I said, and I apologize on behalf of that you had to listen to these things being said. He said, yeah, it happens all the time. So I'm just sharing that little illustration that if we don't want generational shaming or ageism to occur with us or older generations, that I give a caution that we have to also understand that we don't want to reverse that ism toward a younger groups.
Well, yeah, I mean, you hear about, read about, see on social media, millennials taking digs at the boomer generation, and
Sure.
the boomer generation taking digs at millennials. And I think the millennial, they have a term for us boomers. I can't even remember what it is, but
okay, boomer.
Okay, boomer. Yeah, it's kind of which is kind of a dig. It's not a
exactly.
Yeah. So what do we do? What do we all do? What part do we need to all play to help with ageism, whether it be towards the elderly or towards the young? What are your recommendations?
Yeah, there's a couple things. One is that people may be interested. It's a brand new book. It's about 6 months old. It's written by a researcher at Miami University, Dr. Megan Gerhardt, and it's called Gerontology. She actually just this week started a Gerontology Academy. She does research on generational diversity academically. And so this book, it's called it's Gerontology, the Revolutionary Approach to Leading an Intergenerational Workplace, or workforce, I should say. So in here, she gives a lot of strategies, suggestions, ways to start conversations. And I just want to give one of Megan's quotes. Let's stop the generational shaming, the name calling, the scapegoating. Instead, let's think about what different generations can both teach and learn from one another, and how those conversations can result in entirely new ways of solving problems. So I think that we have to, with anything, if you want to learn something more about something, whether that's history, whether it's communication, whether it's technology, it's not something that's inherent. It's something we have to learn. So, I mean, there's literally thousands and thousands of articles, research-based articles, journals, books about this subject, because employers are starting to understand that, diversity is such a puzzle. It could be education, it could be age, it could be gender, it could be physical ability, education, socioeconomic status, but this piece of the puzzle called age, that learning more about that there's benefits to that. And so it's something that we have to learn to do, how to communicate and want to know more about other generations.
Right. Well, with that, I mean, we're unfortunately out of time. It just flies, but it's been.
It does.
Yeah, doesn't it fly? So, Linda, thank you so much for joining us. Maybe you could just share your website address again with everybody.
Sure. www.DiverseAGE.com.
Great. Linda Barrett, thank you so much for joining us on Boomers Today. I really appreciate it. And I want to thank everybody out there for joining us. Please be safe, and we'll talk to everybody real soon.
You've been listening to Boomers Today with Frank Sampson. To learn more about today's show, visit boomerstodayradio.com and join us next time for another edition of Boomers Today.